Just a couple more days to the start of the baseball season for 2018. And hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We're talking all about the 2018 baseball season, just about to start up, only about 4 days away. And Gary, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited.
Yay, it's almost here. I can't wait. We've been waiting all winter through snowstorms and rain and all kinds of crapola to get to this point, Rich, but it's almost here. Mere 4 days away now, and I am all excited about it.
Sauce, yep. Again in the Northeast, we're facing some flurries. We had a little snow a couple of days ago, so this spring has just been evasive for us up here, Gary. I know I said I was going to go to spring training. I was sure I was going to spring training. Couple of things happened along the way in the past couple of weeks, so I will not be going to spring training, but my heart was there, and I was watching a few games as well in the sunshine down there.
Well, Rich, that's what happens in life. You got the best laid plans of mice and men, and we'll have to try to plan it next year. Maybe start up a GoFundMe page or whatever to see if we can get people to give us a few bucks. Maybe they can help us make the journey down here together down to spring training.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And of course, now that you mentioned that, Gary, I want to thank, we had 5 or so new subscribers to our YouTube channel, which we do this show live straight out. 9.98 time out of 100 we do straight out as you hear it. So we appreciate the extra 5 or 6 that signed on and subscribed to our live show on YouTube that you can watch at any time. You can get our updates when we've done a show as well and when we go live. So check us out on YouTube. And of course, you can listen to the show on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and baseballtalkradio.com. You can hear the podcast. Take us along for the ride if you're riding to work, riding home, you're stuck in traffic, you want to spend an afternoon, maybe your lunch hour, or when you're doing housework or something. We appreciate the listen, and we thank you guys for listening and staying with us. And Gary, this week we have a special guest on, going to talk baseball with us before we get to our regular round of stories this week in the Major League Baseball world, including our picks this week. Are you all ready for those picks, Gary?
No, I just scribbled down a couple today, and I didn't get to the playoffs yet, but I've got up to my wild cards. But beyond that, I haven't decided yet. So maybe I'll just take a pass on certain things until halfway through the season. But or I'll just take a wild guess at it and see what happens. But I'm excited about our guest, Rich. Let's get to him.
Yeah, and that's awesome to me. Let's just go with our picks for the individual divisions, and then maybe next week we'll go, maybe after the baseball season starts, we'll go with a more refined playoff picture from us. So, yeah, our special guest is a gentleman named Ed from a great website on baseball. And Ed, tell us all about that site and where we can find you on the web.
Well, it's Foulball. First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, guys. It's foulballs.com, foulballz.com. I've been doing that this for, I don't know, I think this is my 7th season. It just started off as kind of a little habit, or a little hobby, rather. Right. Trying to find information, the best places to sit. I knew that there had to be a way to kind of, baseball is full of stats. And I figured there had to be a way to find a place to sit that increased your chances of catching a foul ball. And it just kind of kept developing from there until I hit the spot where I realized that netting, which is a huge pet peeve of mine, the extended netting, was something that I could easily talk about. Plus, I started tracking how many fans were actually being hit by foul balls, and that's really how it's come about.
That's awesome. I love to see niche websites like this. And you have, of course, stories about visiting ballparks and, as you said, little tips and tidbits about if you're going to certain stadiums, you give nice tips. I don't know if you've heard of another website. It's called Baseball PhD, but it's sort of along the same lines as that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've looked at that website many times. It's a great site too.
Yeah. So your main theme of the website seems to be about the foul balls, and that's how I read one of your Twitter posts over the past week, and that's one thorn that's stuck in mine and Gary's side is the changing of baseball, the adding of netting, and just an overall. It's an annoyance in baseball to have netting extending down the bases. To me, what do you think about that, Gary?
Well, Rich, yeah, I mean, I understand the safety aspect of it all, but it just seems that we've gone for so many years without this sort of thing, and now all of a sudden, this generation seems to need protection against everything, and it just, I don't know. I know a lot of people might criticize me for that, but I just think that, as I said, it's been so many years. The game's been played, and years ago it was played without any netting at all, and now all of a sudden we need all of this protection. And but I guess it's just a general thing in life now.
Yeah, it seems like, as you said, this generation, they're affected by the news. They're affected by these stories that take on a life of their own. Over the years, yes, there has been fans hit by a foul ball. Obviously, the law of averages is going to tell you that that's going to happen, especially in this day and age with a person that's not paying attention. They may be on their cell phones or tablets, things like that, which many years ago, most people were attuned to the game. They're not wondering, what Aunt Tilda is doing at the birthday party while they're watching the game. They were focused on the game. And 9 times out of 10, their eyes, especially if you're first to third in the first level of a ballpark, you really have to be on guard, so to speak. So, Ed, you have an interesting research area on your website as well. We'll get into a specific story that HBO did on foul balls and how they're injuring people. But tell us about the research area on your website where you're listing all kinds of cases, previous cases from fans.
Oh yeah, I've done. I try to keep up on every single lawsuit there has been or is going on right now to the best of my ability, and I've discovered, I lost count of how many. There's probably 100 or so website or lawsuits. Sorry, and what I found is that we hear about the baseball rule, and that became a really big thing. It was to protect teams and people. You mentioned it's this generation now that can't really pay attention, and it really actually seems to be that way. The baseball rule really came around as a way to protect teams from fans doing what they're doing now, and that's complaining about being hit. And I've tried to keep up the best I can, but recently there's been a few extra lawsuits. Like I haven't gotten the Cleveland Indians one in recently, but I track those as best as I can.
Yeah, and you list on your website all laws and statutes about the baseball Facility Liability Act, baseball players' right to recover for baseball-related personal injuries. I can remember my own son taking him to a ballpark many years ago with his friends, a few of his friends in Philadelphia. His buddy was trying to catch a foul ball hit in batting practice by Barry Bonds, which was an absolute moonshot. I saw it all the way too, and I didn't even want to get involved in it. But the young kid went to catch the ball. The ball went through his hands, hit off his head, knocked him down, and all the other kids went for the ball. So did he. From his hands and knees, he crawled about 10 feet and grabbed this baseball. Short, he was injured. He had a big, I would say, a golf ball sized knot on his forehead that developed black and blue very rapidly after that. And I had to take him to the infirmary there. Then it was the Veterans Stadium, which is one of those huge stadiums that we don't see much anymore in baseball. But the thought never came over my mind of trying to sue anybody or getting upset by it. You tried to catch a baseball in this aspect anyway, and it wasn't caught. It ricocheted off your forehead, and it was a young kid, but he was fine, and he still has the ball today.
I think that's just part of the game. Anyone who has gone to many games and they want a part of the game, like a ball, they understand that, well, if I flub this catch, I'm going to be injured. It's not anybody's fault but my own. But that mentality seems to be changing over the last few years.
Yes, indeed.
Not sure where it's headed, but we'll see.
It does seem like a more litigious society, and a society that wants to try to impose laws to protect people from themselves almost. Another quick story, I had a big tree outside of my house that I had to protect. They wanted to cut it down, the local county government where I live. And an engineer came out, and I questioned, why do you want to cut this old tree down? Oh, well, in case somebody's walking down the sidewalk and a limb happens to fall. Well, that could happen anytime. There was, wherever you are. So I just had to laugh. And he wasn't a young guy either, but that's the sort of weird mentality that goes on in this day and age. It's like, things that have existed for years all of a sudden are a big problem, and baseball just happens to be a catch-all of all these new regulations.
It really is. It really is. Gail Payne, the woman who had season tickets to the Oakland A's for, I don't remember how long. I'd have to look the information back up. It was something like 50 years. And she went to virtually every single A's game, and suddenly she gets hit by a ball and she's suing the A's and MLB. And that's the mentality that we've gotten is, well, you've been there for 50 years. You know the dangers, but, it's a quick and easy money situation for many people, because these teams in MLB will settle out of court and say, okay, here's the money. Sorry for any inconvenience. When it really comes down to, it's our responsibility as fans to pay attention and to understand what the game is. I remember growing up in Detroit and going to Tiger Stadium and seeing people with the transistor radios to their head. And I always thought, oh, that's not a good idea. You're not paying attention to the game. And I think that's blown up now. So it's discouraging to see the netting coming up. That's for sure.
I'm even surprised that they are allowed to litigate such a thing, because it does say on every ticket, and when you go into every ballpark, there is a warning to pay attention to batted balls and things like that. And To me, if I was a judge, I think I would throw the case out because they're not paying enough attention to either protect themselves. I mean, it's really, as you were saying, Rich, we're suing about everything. And I go back to the woman that went to McDonald's and got a cup of coffee and put it between her legs and hit a bump and burnt her legs. And she sued and actually got a settlement from them. I mean, how ridiculous, because she said she didn't know the coffee was hot. Come on, coffee's supposed to be hot. You're not buying iced coffee. And I just think we're getting to I've got a thing with millennials anyway. But I don't know. I guess I'm turning into an old grumpy man because I just don't understand all of this stuff nowadays. That we need laws to protect, as Rich said, we're protecting ourselves from ourselves because we're too stupid or we're too just we don't want to take responsibility for anything anymore, it seems. And I think this is just a microcosm of the whole societal evolution, if you will.
Oh, I agree. You don't see fans in soccer, in golf, in heck, the Tour de France or NASCAR. Well, sometimes in NASCAR and sometimes in racing, you see fans sue for injuries. Mm-hmm. But it's only in baseball where fans are all up on litigation. It's like, we got to sue, we got to sue, we got to sue. And I don't understand this. I track to the best of my ability. I usually just do it through Twitter. But I track to the best of my ability how many fans are on their phones that they report on Twitter or on social media. Like last season alone, out of 114 fans who admitted to being hit by a foul ball, 53 admitted to using the phone, not paying attention to the game. And yet those are the people that sue and get a settlement for some reason. And it doesn't make sense. I don't mind the millennials so much myself, but the fact that we have gotten into the habit of suing for every little thing, even when we are clearly at fault, it's troubling to the world in general, but especially to baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just week I signed up with the Phillies in particular with a ticket package that they have for the month of April. It's only $50, and what you have to do, it's all phone driven or app driven, so you can bring a tablet with you, but you don't receive tickets anymore. So baseball is wholly embracing, of course, mobile devices. They want you to bring your mobile device to get into the ballpark now with this particular plan. And a lot of ballparks are now wondering, should they go away from tickets in mass? I don't think they can 100% yet because some of the older crowd that goes to baseball, and let me say, I don't have anything against millennials either. I know a lot of them listen to this show, so I don't want to polarize them or say anything.
I don't have anything against them per se. I just I don't agree with them. Let's put it that way.
It's a social movement almost with the millennials, with different things that they notice in the world that, by the way, have been going on for years and years and years. It's not since they just were born and were raised and grown up, and now they're adults that they're looking around. Oh, this has to change. This has to change, because it's been happening for, in some instances, many, many, many years. But getting back to the baseball aspect, Major League Baseball encourages these mobile devices. They build fantastic apps. You can sit in the stands. You can watch 3 other games on a tablet while you're watching that game. It's sort of to that mentality. And my own self, I can see myself now lately in the last couple times that I've been to the ballpark. Yes, I am distracted more by my mobile device, whereas maybe 6 years ago or so, I never was distracted by my phone. But now they make it so appealing to tune in for stats and information and things like that, and delivery to your seat. You can order a beer now and a hot dog, and they'll bring it right down to your seat with your phone.
Well, Rich, I froze up, or you froze up. I don't know who froze up, and I think we've lost Ed. Ed, are you still there?
Looks like we may have lost Ed there. But Gary, if you want to try to get him back on the line, I'll just continue my theme here. And again, I'm not sure we did have that much technical difficulty, but obviously Ed dropped off the line for the minute. But to continue on the theme of mobile device,
Here he's calling me.
Baseball and stadiums.
Sorry about that. This is live, folks.
Very convenient. And as Gary said,
Hello, Ed. How are you?
A podcast here.
Somehow we got disconnected. Sorry
Yes,
about
we
that.
did.
And now Ed is back. So, Ed, I was just making a point of baseball makes it easier now to have your mobile device and be distracted by it while you're in the stands.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see on the jumbotrons where say, "Hey, text such and such too for a chance to win something," and yeah, they're catering to what's now and what people are doing. People are burying themselves in their phones, and they're trying to change with the times. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing either.
Absolutely. So we're talking with Ed from foulballs.com. That's FOULBALLZ.com. You can follow Ed on Twitter at foulballs is his name, FOULBALLZ.com. And Ed, you specifically had some posts up about HBO and their whitewashing of this whole incident, almost painting a broad picture of how baseball is dangerous, how baseball doesn't make it safe for fans, quote unquote. Can you talk about that?
I sure can. That is one of the pieces that I've seen televised or reported on that I was floored when I was watching this. I couldn't believe that Brian Gumbel and HBO Real Sports would put something like this together. It was so flawed in so many ways. For example, they talked about, they did a test. They sat some people behind plexiglass, and Washington State University, the sports science lab there, shot baseballs at these fans sitting behind plexiglass as Brian Gumbel spoke to them, in order to kind of get a feel of how fast the baseball is coming at the person and how much time they had to react. And I looked at this, and it's not a realistic setting for baseball. We go to a game, we're watching the game, we might look away, but what they forgot or neglected to put in as part of their experiment was a number of things. The most important being the crack of that bat. Mm-hmm. We can hear the crack of that bat, but in this real sports experiment, it was just a cannon, a ball shooting a cannon right at the fan. There's no curve of the ball. There's no other fans in the way. There's no crack of the bat. There's no visual or audio signals to let the fan know that the ball is coming toward them or something's about to happen. And I felt that was perhaps the most significant shortcoming. They all but presented the situation improperly. It shocked me that actually got through the editors. That's just one thing, and there are so many others. Anything particular that you want me to discuss?
No. Have at it. I didn't specifically see the HBO series on this, but I'm going to research it myself now and listen to it, because it's just this kind of series and After a series is produced like this, it takes on a life of itself. There's liberal writers out there that'll jump on this and cite it and take it as gospel and things like that and spread it all over the land like it's the worst thing that ever happened to a baseball fan. And we all know, as being fans and being in the stadiums, they've made the stadiums a little tighter now. They're a little closer. You're closer to the field, but so it makes it a little bit more difficult to react sometimes, even at a fast foul ball. But no, go on and continue with your theme.
Well, when you talk about responding, the rules of the let me try and gather my thoughts here first. The rules, MLB rules, state that no seats can be within 70 feet of the foul lines. So fans have 70 feet at the closest point to respond in some way to a foul ball or a bat coming at them. And in the research, because they were talking about how humans just don't have enough time to react at all to a baseball flying at them at about 100 miles an hour across 70 feet. And the fact is, if you look at the actual human response time, we do have time. The average response time gives us more than the adequate time to at least put our hands up in front of our faces, if not duck out of the way. And that was another major fallacy in the HBO special. They're saying there's just no time, but the facts and the statistics say otherwise. If you get your face out of the phone, you'll know. Baseball ends up being one of the safest spectator sports in the world. There are more fans killed at soccer games. Mainly that's from soccer riots, but fans are dying at the Tour de France. They're being run over by bicycles and by the lead and trail vehicles. In golf, there's something like 40,000 injuries from spectators alone, each year. Golf sends more people to the hospital than baseball ever does. One fan in over 100 years has died from a foul ball. As a young man, he was at a Dodgers game, and he actually got hit twice by a foul ball. And the first one was, he was cleared by the medical personnel, and he said, okay, you can go back. And then he ended up getting hit again. And he ended up dying as a result of more as a result of medical issues, oversights, than the ball itself. People, and that's, I think, a testament to how safe baseball really is to the spectators. Putting up nets is not an answer. Teaching people to get out of their phones and pay attention is the answer. HBO didn't bring that stuff up. They said, oh, it's just a danger, it's a danger, it's a danger. Look at how many fans are being hit. They didn't even have the statistics for how many fans were being hit. They had they'd just blown it out of proportion. And you mentioned how news reporters will take this and blow it out of proportion. That's exactly what they did with this story. And it's unfortunate that people won't listen to the statistics and say, oh, one person versus 12 or so in the Tour de France, something like 100 in race car driving, in racing. And it really got under my skin. That's why I have a two-part piece on that HBO special alone.
Yeah, that can really dig you into. And if you've been to a lot of ball games, then chances are you know that a lot of this research is bogus. It's all about paying attention. And like I said, I've been at a couple of games in the past year, and I'm guilty of it myself. I heard the crack of the bat. I'm still looking down. If I got hit, it was my own fault, not Major League Baseball, not the Phillies, which is the ballpark I was at, but it could have been any ballpark. I was glued to my phone, and I shouldn't have been. I should have been watching the action. That's what I paid to come see. A lot of changes in baseball, but and Gary and I have been railing about them in the past couple of shows. We'll probably continue, right, Gary?
Yes, probably will, but no, I agree with you. I'm guilty of it myself. But I'm always listening for the crack of the bat. When I hear the bat, my head goes up. As an old catcher, I'm a little bit aware that if there's a right-handed batter up and I'm sitting on the right field line, then I have to be more aware. Same thing, field batter, a lefty up, and I'm on the third base side. I have to be more aware because the foul balls tend to go to the opposite sides of the batter. So if there's a lefty up on the right, and I'm sitting on the right field line or something, right hand side of home plate, first base side, then I might be a little bit more lax. But you have to keep your ears open for the crack of the bat and be aware that the thing could come flying up at you. Now, sometimes I sit in seats where there isn't snowball's chance in hell of a ball getting up there, but still, you still got to be aware.
Yes, indeed. So,
absolutely.
Yep, a great website. Ed from foulballs.com. We're talking with him here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. A lot of great research on there with foul ball history. Goes back to the 1800s, the late 1800s, where baseball abolished underhand delivery in favor of the more modern pitching style. And it goes on from there about foul balls and how fans are assuming some sort of risk in reference to sitting at a baseball game. But Ed, any final things you'd like to add to this segment? I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, there is one thing. Unfortunately, extended netting is a reality now, but I have two small kids, and I love sitting as close to the field as I possibly can. But I think that we have to take responsibility more than we are. I see a bunch of parents holding their babies and trying to catch a foul ball at the same time. And I really just would like to emphasize to parents that they need to be more cognizant about how they're endangering their own children by going after a baseball or sitting them way too close. I sit my kids in the outfield. Whenever we go to Comerica Park or to any other park, we always sit our kids as far out as possible. They can still get a sense of the game, but they aren't in danger, right? You know, a ball's going to reach you no matter where you are in the park at some point. At least there's a chance of it. And I want to emphasize to the parents that they need to be aware that they shouldn't be endangering children like that. It's bad enough that if you're buried in your phone, but we got to remember the kids. We're trying to build a generation that loves baseball. So that's where I think I'll leave it right there.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us, Ed from foulballs.com. Give him a follow on Twitter. Check him out there, and we'll have a link at our website, mlbthisweek.com. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye now. And that was Ed from foulballs.com. Great segment there, Gary. It's often something you don't think about before you buy a ticket to a ball game.
Very interesting, Rich. And Ed talked about the young kids and the babies and stuff. And, when I was a kid, I don't remember people bringing like newborns and that young a kid to the game. I mean, maybe you got to reconsider that aspect of it. You see a lot of times, as he said, there's guys that got their babies that look like they're, maybe 8 months old, strapped to their chest, and they're trying to catch a ball, and by the way, got a beer in one hand and the kid in the other.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another kind of thing that we have to start looking at, that maybe you should reconsider, instead of bringing your 8-month-old or your year-old kid to the game. He's not going to really remember it. I'm not saying put age limitations on, you got to be 5 years old to get into a ball game. Far from it. But I think you have to do some considerations. I mean, I remember, watching some games here in early April, a night game. It's still cold. It gets cold, especially at Citi Field. I can only speak about Citi Field, but believe me, I went to the second game of the season last year. It was ridiculously uncomfortable and cold. And there were people walking around with newborns and babies wrapped up in blankets and stuff. Man, it's that cold. Leave your kid at home, please. Don't bring the kid. Get a babysitter if the wife wants to go to the game. But boy, don't bring that kid out into a cold game like that when adults couldn't even keep warm. Didn't even know, with the jackets on and everything else. So, of course, maybe the baby was nice and warm because he was all wrapped up in a blanket, and wanted to steal a blanket off of one kid. It was so cozy looking. But that's something else that people should consider. And keep an eye on your kid. You let your kid run around the ballpark sometimes, especially in the minor league ballparks, more so than the majors, because they're so big. But just keep an eye on your kid too.
That's an excellent point, Gary. Yeah, I wouldn't have brought a child that was under I don't know, at least probably 2 or 3 to a ballpark. Anything less than that, I don't think you're doing them a service, and you're certainly putting them in some sort of an environment that they shouldn't be in, for sure. So yeah, just use your common sense with things like that. And like you said, Gary, how many times have we seen the highlights with a guy holding a beer, holding his kid, and then he's catching a foul ball and
Yeah.
and what is this, a circus? It's really not a circus. It's a game. There are dangers in a ballpark. There's dangers at a hockey game. There's dangers at a football game. You just have a big crowd. You have opposing fans there. You have a lot of beer going on. And, we didn't even talk about that with Ed, but, a lot of guys that are drinking their beers, at least they are watching the games as well.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, they're still going to be able to defend themselves.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, all it takes is getting an arm up out of the way. Now, the bats, I can understand. The bats are a tricky situation, but I guess the netting's going to help, but it just takes away from the game, and I think it just pushes the players that tad bit more away from the fans, and isolates them even more than they have been in the past. So I don't know, but as we said, this is the way of the world nowadays. We have to protect ourselves from ourselves and need other people to protect us from ourselves. So that's what happens.
Yep. Trying to put a positive spin on this. Baseball begins in only 4 days from the time that we're doing this podcast. We could go on about certain things that are going on in baseball, and we will as the shows continue here. Baseball changing, obviously, as each day changes. It seems like you open a newspaper or go on a website now, and there's a new rule posed for how bad baseball is, and we have to. You've listened to us for a while. You know our position on that. But Gary, how do you feel about baseball's opening day now that it's only just a couple days away?
Well, opening day is always exciting, Rich. It's the the beginning of a new season. It's the pomp and circumstance. It's just to me, it's like, summer's around for somebody that hates winter like me. It's a big deal because the summertime is coming and coming quick. So it's always a great day for me, exciting. I used to take off and go to a number of the games. Now I'm older. I won't be doing that, but I did go. What was it? 2011, I think, was the last time I went to an opening day, and it was a lot of fun. But I'll be either watching or listening on the radio. I'll be at work, and I can't say that I'm watching at work, but I'll probably be trying to tune in at work over the phone on an app or something or other. But it's always an exciting day. It's the start of something new. It's just the end of the winter, like almost, or the beginning of the end of the winter and the opening into summer. So it's a great day. I just love opening day.
Yes, it is. And this year it's an early opening day, as Gary was saying. Bring your blankets to the ballpark, even though it may not be freezing. 40s, high 40s, and 50s with the wind can make you feel very cold after just a short amount of time. So, bring your hats, your gloves, depending on where you are, of course, your blankets to the stadium, because I'm sure it's going to be cold in some locations. Let me just run through a couple of the opening day games here, and then we'll get into our picks for the division winners, Gary, to wrap up this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. The Diamondbacks are playing the Rockies at 10:10 p.m., and these games are all Eastern time, of course. The Braves open up at home in Atlanta against the Phillies, 4:10 p.m. start time there. The Orioles and the Twins face off at 3:05 p.m. The Red Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays, 4 p.m. on Thursday. And a ton of these games are going to be on ESPN as well. They're going to have games playing from noon to midnight. So the Cubs and the Marlins kick it off, depending on where you live, of course, your viewing area, 12:30 p.m. So that's one of your first games that will be played. The Tigers and the Pirates at 1:10 p.m. It's going to be great, Gary. I can see myself tuning into a couple games here, especially on ESPN. And I just read, I got a email from the MLB network that they're going to air close to 50 games in the first month of April of the season here. So that's a ton of games to be playing on MLB Network. Seems like they're having a lot more games being broadcast there.
And Rich, they also, I don't know if you've seen this, but the MLB and Facebook are going to produce and broadcast one game every week to a global audience on Facebook. So there'll be a 25-game package of weekly broadcasts, be exclusively on Facebook Watch in the United States via the MLB Live show page, marking MLB's first digital-only national broadcast. Every game also will be available globally on a show page, excluding select international markets. The announcement was made after the 30 major league clubs unanimously approved the deal. So there are going to be at least one game that will only be broadcast on Facebook, and the first one is going to be between our teams. Rich, is a matinee matchup between the Philadelphia Phillies and the New York Mets, live from Citi Field on Wednesday, April 4th at 1:10 p.m. And that's going to be the first one, and it's going to be on Facebook Watch. So something new there too as well, Rich.
That's awesome. And of course, that opens up the game to a lot of people that don't have television. They've cut the cord at home, which is great. I think the MLB doesn't realize how many people like those folks are out there. I think I told you this story on a previous podcast. I had a gentleman that I ran into. I had a conversation with him, told him that I write a blog, and he actually told me he read my blog, and then I asked him, well, what did you think of last season? He said, well, I be honest with you, I didn't see most of it because my wife, um, decided to cut our cable to give them a little more money for their other entertainment needs. But a lot of people just don't have cable anymore, Gary. So it's very difficult for them to watch baseball.
Yeah, it's an increasing trend, and that's why they're getting into this whole uh digital realm, and they're not the first. I mean, the NFL has had games on Twitter, um had games on I think they may have done some Facebook games. So it's a whole new thing for these teams and these organizations, and so we'll see where that takes us all.
And by the way, that was an excellent graphic that you had up on the screen when Ed from foulballs.com joined us. Gary made that up on the fly, folks. He didn't have that prepared a day or two ago. So my kudos for that great design.
Well, I had an opportunity while you were talking to him to kind of drift away and set that baby up. So, but I thank you.
So let's check out our picks here as we wrap up this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. And by the way, you can tune in, as I said at the start of the broadcast, over at baseballtalkradio.com. You can listen to Gary's Mets Musings, which he does faithfully every week. He's got a lot of interviews that he's doing lately, so check that out. One of the best shows on the Mets. I always listen myself. I like to keep up on the Mets. His show there, my Phillies show is there, trying to get some more editions out. So tune in there. And of course, all throughout baseball and the world of baseball, you can tune into a Japanese baseball show that's weekly, a professional show out there about the Japan Baseball League. A ton of shows, European baseball, and a lot in between. So check it out, baseballtalkradio.com, the home for great baseball talk radio. And a lot of it's independent, just like you're listening to this show. We're not being paid. This is a hobby for most of us, and we enjoy it. So check it out, baseballtalkradio.com. And Gary, why don't you start it off with your picks here for the division winners in the National League?
Well, the first one, Rich, I agonized over because I know where my heart wanted to take me, but I'm going to go with the NL East. I'm going to give it to the Nationals. I have to. I think the Mets are going to overtake them, and I think they can overtake them. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to give it to the Nationals this year. NL Central, I've got an upset there. I've got a different team taking it over. I like what the Milwaukee Brewers did this year. I'm going to say the Milwaukee Brewers are going to upset everybody and take that NL Central over the Cubbies and the Cardinals and the Pirates. In the NL West, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. D-backs were good last year, but Giants made some improvements, but I still think the Dodgers are the class act out there, and I've got the Dodgers taking the NL West. For the NL wild cards, I've got the St. Louis Cardinals getting one of the spots, and of course, I got to get my Mets in there somewhere, Rich. So I got them in as a wild card team.
Wow, that's that's great. I'm glad you're that optimistic.
Always got to be optimistic, Rich. To me, if the pitching stays healthy and the players stay healthy, a lot of what happened last year was due to injury. And it sounds like an excuse, but if you really analyze the whole year, they lost their entire pitching staff at one point. So, I mean, DeGrom was the only one that really stayed healthy the most out of all last year. So, Um, when you analyze everything, you lose a starting left fielder, you lost your center fielder, you lost your first baseman for a spell, you lost this guy, that guy. It all points to how badly they did, and I think if they can stay healthy, and it's a big if, granted, but I think they have just enough firepower. There still are some questions, but there's questions about every team. I think they can win the wild card.
That's true. And you said that magic word and words, if they can stay healthy, because we've already had some injuries with involving some big name players, a couple of pitchers already a little banged up coming out of spring training. I'll give you a few of mine. It doesn't differ too much with yours, Gary. I think the powerhouses that have been will probably continue here in 2018 with the NL East. I'm going with the Nationals, of course. Who else can you go with? As you said, maybe there will be an upset. You like the Mets. I don't think the Phillies are ready for the playoffs. If they did well, then I would be happy, but I'll go with the Nationals, of course. NL Central, I still have to hand it to the Cubs. I think they have a lot of poise. They have a lot of experience. They did lose Jake Arrieta, but they gained a pitcher as well. So maybe that'll shake things up. I think they're one of the classiest organizations in baseball. Some of the best role model type players going on in the game there. Um, Over in the West, I like it's a no brainer. A toss up between the Dodgers and the D backs. The Dodgers get my vote here for the NL West. And the wild card, I would have to say the D backs. They turned it on late in the season last year. I think they will again this year. It'd be good to see them do well. Um, so that's my picks there, and we'll go on with our playoff picks and World Series picks in the next program. Do you want to do your AL picks, Gary?
Sure. The AL East, well, I don't know. This is a tough one for me too. But I'm going to give it to the Red Sox. I just still think they're the class act of the division. I know a lot of people are going to pick the Yankees. I've got some questions about the Yankees, besides the point that I don't like them. But I do have some questions about their rotation. Will Stanton hit? Can Judge, not have a sophomore year jinx? So all of these kind of questions, I'd like. Same thing with Sanchez, really, because this is really his second full year. Played a good bit in 16, played all year 17, but this is really his full-time second year. So we'll see how that affects him. Can Didi Gregorius do it again? It's like any team, though. Every team has got question marks. So I'm going to go with the Red Sox. AL Central, hard to go against the Indians. I mean, they just keep rolling and adding guys and doing this and doing that and don't seem to miss a beat. I do like some of the moves the White Sox made this year. They could be a team, and of course, Minnesota made some big moves. They made the wild card last year. They could be in a race there, but I still like Cleveland. I'm going to stick with them. Out in the West, you got to go with the champs. How can you vote against the champs? Houston Astros, terrific team. I think they're built all the way through. They've got a great rotation. Their bullpen may be a little less than average out there, and not much in the closing department. But if there's a weak spot, that's their weak spot. But they've got a great lineup. They play good defense. They play good fundamental baseball. Great starting rotation. Probably one of the best in baseball. And hard to go against the Houston Astros. So I'm going to go with the Houston in the West, Cleveland in the Central, Red Sox in the East. And my wild cards are the New York Yankees. I think they have enough to get to the postseason. And I'm going with a little bit of a surprise. I'm going to say the Texas Rangers as the other wild card.
I like that. I like that pick. Cole Hamels, a former Philly and World Series MVP there on the Rangers. So, yeah, that's a great pick, Gary. I love that. Here's my pick for the AL. I'm going with the powerhouse on the AL East. And I know you don't like them, Gary. No. New York's a big town, but I'm going to have to go with the Yankees.
Okay.
Based upon two names, Stanton and Judge, they are going to set the pace in baseball. I think you're going to have some sort of home run record on the Yankees this year. It's going to take a life of its own, I believe. This story is going to be huge in baseball, and I think the Yankees are going to be right in the thick of it with their help. In the AL Central, the Cleveland Indians, you can't really go against them, although they've had their opportunities. Maybe that has passed with them. But I think that they will do well again this year. They won 102 games last year. They seem like they're still built to win. Out in the West, as you said, Gary, I had originally penciled in the Angels, but I don't think they can overcome the Astros. So for that reason, I'll have to go with the Astros out in the AL West. I've got a wild card toss up between the Red Sox and the Angels, favoring the Red Sox a little more. I think the Angels, though, are going to be the most improved team in the AL in 2018. So my wild card pick would have to be the Red Sox, but watch those Angels for 2018.
Okay. Yeah, they could be good. They got Trout, of course, and they added Otani. I still think they're weak in certain areas, though. But hey, you never know. A couple of trades here and there, and they could be right in the mix of everything.
That's true. And stay tuned to our broadcast here, the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We're going to be talking baseball foods, of course, coming up on future shows. We're going to be talking, of course, about the different uniforms that the teams are going to be wearing in 2018. Always one of my favorite segments. That's because they release that information now in advance, whereas before they used to keep a lot of that under the wrap. So we'll be talking about that on the next upcoming shows. Of course, in my little world here, Jake Arrieta is going to be pitching for the Phillies, so I'm very happy. It's been announced that he's going to start in front of the hometown fans on April 8th for any Phillies fans or Jake Arrieta fans out there that may have been Cub fans as well. But Gary, I'm excited for the start of the season. I can't wait to do more shows with you, and let baseball begin.
Amen, Rich. Amen.
Well, thanks for joining us on this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show, everyone. We'll be back with more shows for the 2018 season.